Introduction to the Tianguan Chronicle. Tianfa Kills the Machine, moving stars and changing accommodations, the ground sends a killing machine, and dragons and snakes land. Human attacks can turn the world upside down. Preface 1. Humans, one defeat on the ground. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The vast permafrost is boundless, and the undulating gray basin connects with the Yellow River. Countless steel debris is embedded on both sides of the river valley, with no end in sight. The sky is filled with chaotic red lines, like giant graffiti, which are the wake clouds left by the fierce battle between the winged divine aircraft and the Six Desires Heaven for 10 hours. From Liang Erbai's perspective, it was difficult to distinguish the situation at that time. The sky in her eyes was sometimes occupied by rolling dark red entities, and sometimes burst into piercing white light. Waves of blood rain mixed with incomplete machinery emitting electric sparks all fell to the ground. The Yellow River Bridge, which used to be a landmark building in Jincheng City, has been cut off by an explosion. The steel brackets have been burned by high-temperature flames until they dissolve and then cooled down. The broken stubble presents an irregular knot shape. The frozen river water under the bridge shimmers with cold light, and the howling winds roll up clusters of pink snow, spinning and rushing towards the sky. Liang Erbai suddenly shuddered. Am I about to die? The pain of the fracture had numbed, and the cold wind throughout the night made Liang Erbai's consciousness begin to dissipate. Suddenly, a piercing fire whistle pierced through her eardrums. Liang Erbai, who was holding on to the life-saving straw, squeezed out her last bit of strength, picked up the brick at hand, and knocked on the exposed half of the steel bar from the concrete block pressing on her legs. The dull sound of the iron echoed far away, and the sound of the fire whistle in her ear became even more urgent. When Liang Erbai regained her senses, several soldiers with bloodshot eyes had rescued her. After her injured leg was simply fixed with anti-inflammatory bandages, Liang Erbai was carried on to an ambulance. Comrade, do you have any identification? Liang Erbai took out his inner pocket from his chest and handed a blue-covered document to the other person, saying, Officer of the National Electrocardiogram Research Institute in Jincheng City, my name is Liang Erbai. Thank you for saving me. Are you a rescue team from the 4th Corps? The man carefully checked the document information and photos, confirmed their accuracy, and then returned the document to Liang Erbai. He replied, yes, it's from the 4th Corps. The ambulance truck quickly drove onto the highway, which was empty. On both sides were ruins burned to the point of only steel and cement frames, as well as huge sinkholes visible everywhere. Smoke and gunpowder were scattered everywhere, and the dark yellow road signs hanging on streetlights and utility poles, which read, No Passage and Emergency Evasion, creaked in the wind. The ambulance truck was silent, with occasional harsh electronic noises. A thick and steady male voice was heard in the car broadcast. Executive Committee of the Community with a Shared Future for Humanity, Earth Emergency Broadcasting. Executive Committee of the Community with a Shared Future for Humanity, Earth Emergency Broadcasting. Executive Committee of the Community with a Shared Future for Humanity, Earth Emergency Broadcasting. Global Coverage Emergency Frequencies. Shortwave XXXX kHz, XXXXX kHz, XXXXX kHz National Coverage Emergency Frequency. Medium Wave XXX, XXX kHz Ganyangzhou Joint Defense Military Frequency. Medium Wave XXXX kHz, we are now broadcasting emergency broadcasts to all military and civilians in the states, autonomous regions, Yinghua Ancient Star Production Corps, and Qiming Ancient Star Production Corps of the Haitang Republic. The Earth has suffered a major disaster, and major infrastructure in countries around the world has been severely impacted. Suddenly, a huge shadow covered the ambulance truck. Liang Erbai looked up in shock and looked out the window through bulletproof glass. In front of him stood an indigo-blue giant corpse, with cow horns, 3 sides, and a human body. From Liang Erbai's current perspective, it looks very oppressive. The huge corpse's flame-colored beard and hair are dry and tangled, and the center of the eyebrows is empty, leaving only an unsightly depression scar. More than 100 arms standing behind have been blown apart, with black holes in both eye sockets and protruding gums, and a terrifying face. The heads on both sides of the neck have been cut off, with only a large, unrecognizable piece of flesh hanging down. The dried blood has stained everything around it red. De Wei de Ming Wang, with the Sanskrit name Yen Mo de Jia, Yam, Antaka, also known as the fearless Vajra or the bull-headed king, is the angry aspect of Bodhisattva Shu in Buddhist mythology. Its fatal injury was a slash from the neck, penetrating deep into the 5 internal organs. With one strike, it almost cut the Ming king in half. This was a dark and massive unmatched Mo, with a thick blade that had lost its kinetic energy deeply trapped in the abdominal cavity of the giant corpse. The handle was held in the hand of a 6-story tall, ancient-shaped, red in front and black in the back, tiger-headed armored vehicle. When the speeding truck drove directly below the armor of the tiger head, it was only then that the demon Yam could be seen. Antaka's only 2 complete and terrifying arms with stretched tendons penetrated deep into the armored tiger's head, crushing the cockpit. The 2 giants fought to the death, even colliding their heads, creating a tragic scene of both dying together. Liang Erbai placed his hand on the car window and looked up at the frozen remains in front of him. In the car broadcast, the calm and full male voice continued to broadcast in an orderly manner. The general public should actively organize post-disaster reconstruction activities, unite all forces that can be united as much as possible, and form a united front for post-disaster reconstruction. If reconstruction activities cannot be organized in a timely manner, the public should try to stay in place, maintain personal survival as much as possible, and wait for the rescue of firefighters, the People's Communist Alliance, local security officers, or other emergency rescue organizations. All levels of commanders and trainers should take the initiative to face difficulties, play a pioneering and exemplary role, never forget their original aspirations, keep in mind their mission, do their utmost to safeguard the interests of the people, organize the masses for production and self-rescue, and maintain contact with higher-level organizations. When necessary, they are not afraid of sacrifice. This is the glorious obligation and responsibility of soldiers, and it is also our solemn commitment to the people. The government of Haitang still exists, and the country will not give up the life of any of the people. The Executive Committee of the Community with a Shared Future for Humanity, announced by the Taiyin Ancient Star Command and Operations Center. Zhaozuiyuan.com. Liang Erbai swallowed his saliva and suddenly solemnly said to the soldier in front of him, "I have an important document that I want to see your superior Su Tai immediately." The man didn't lift his head either. He took out a hanging bottle and needle from the first aid kit and gently patted Liang Erbai's wrist. The smell of potassium permanganate on his fingers was a bit pungent. Comrade Su Tai had already sacrificed himself in the frontal assault against the Diamond Man 2 days ago. Su Tai, the commander of the 4th Corps of the 1st Field Army in Ganning Prefecture, is known as Feng Qi. He is a level 4 heavenly official certified by Dumu Palace and is known as the Northwest Double Wall along with the commander of the 2nd Corps, Flying Tiger General Ma Yulan. He is the backbone of the Northwest Army. Sacrificed. Liang Erbai was a bit absent-minded, but quickly regained his composure and said, "Then I'll find Yang Cuanzhong." Yang Cuanzhong, the deputy commander of the regiment, has been a general for generations. The tradition of military officials in his family is even longer than the history of the Republic. He is also a level 4 heavenly officer and has been an old partner with Su Tai for many years. Comrade Yang Cuanzhong suffered a brain injury a week ago and has been receiving medical treatment. He has not regained consciousness until today. Liang Erbai's mind was a bit confused, and suddenly she had a flash of inspiration. Then I'll find Gu Jinqiu. Yesterday's 6 desires heaven was commanded and repelled by him, he must not have died. The man then looked up and said, "I am Gu Jinqiu." Liang Erbai was taken aback and carefully looked at the other person. He had short hair, wide shoulders and thick back, and his face was covered in dry sweat and dust. His facial features were a bit indistinct, and he couldn't tell his age. He looked a bit dull. The man saw the other person's gaze and then lowered his head to see his shoulder badge, which was covered in bloodstains and mud. He understood the girl's doubts and used his sleeve to vigorously wipe the shoulder badge, revealing a blue water ball emblem surrounded by 4 begonia flowers. That was the military emblem of the Begonia Communist National University. Preface 2. The last level v Heavenly Official. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Gu Jianxiu was born during the hot period of the development of the constellations, which was a long and chaotic weak era for today's Begonia people. In his youth, Gu Jianxiu's entire family died in a big fire. He drifted aimlessly and joined one of the main forces of the Revolutionary Army, Yan Wuhe. He divorced once, but had no children, and since then he has been alone. His military career exceeded 200 years, witnessing almost every major war in the history of the Haitang Republic and even in the history of human development. This person has a considerable reputation in the military circle of Haitang, and he should have been commanding a Shinji Corps alone long ago. Unfortunately, due to several bad records of disobedience and other complex reasons, Gu Jianxiu's generals taught and picked the stars several times in a row, and as a result, they still carry the shoulder badge of 4 flowers to this day. Gu Jianxiu watched as 2 soldiers left with a stretcher covered in white cloth, then walked into the dormitory and looked around. The room was cleaned spotlessly, with clothes, bedding, and miscellaneous items taken care of in an orderly manner. There was a suicide note lying on the desk. This soldier probably cleaned the room first, tidied up his luggage, wrote a suicide note, and then took an overdose of sedatives, resulting in his death. Gu Jianxiu has an impression of this young man who committed suicide. He graduated from the Field Armor Academy for no more than 2 years, works diligently and meticulously, is very literary, can write modern poetry, and has also published it in literary and artistic publications within the Corps. At present it is the 18th month of the battle to defend the home planet, and the war has become increasingly difficult. Last month, the old Rome fell completely, and the news of 2 American continents colliding and sinking has spread throughout the military world of Haitang. No one knows how long humans can hold on in front of the 6 desires heaven. Severe cold and tsunami caused by drastic changes in the Earth's crust. The plague brought about by a large number of deaths, the rampant apocalyptic religions of all sizes, and the mutiny caused by them, many people couldn't bear the pressure and committed suicide. If humanity had developed the love-less heaven earlier, perhaps the outcome would have been different. If the Supreme Heritage Act of Begonia had been implemented earlier. Gu Jianxiu chewed on many bitter possibilities in his heart. They all want to die, why not die on the battlefield? Gu Jianxiu heard the soldiers murmur behind him and turned to look at the other person. The other person clearly noticed the officer's stern gaze and was initially at a loss, but eventually calmed down and met Gu Jianxiu. The usually silent commander didn't say anything more, just patted the soldier's shoulder and shook his head. "Hello, please excuse me. Hello, please excuse me." Liang Erbai, who had just completed the resettlement procedures, passed through the narrow corridor on his side. When he saw Gu Jianxiu, who had just walked out of the soldier dormitory, he quickly stepped forward, saluted, and stood upright, saying, "Hello, Colonel Gu." Gu Jianxiu nodded in response and said, "I will find an opportunity to submit your report to a state-level research institute, or directly report it to the Haitang Internal Reference. Is there anything else?" Liang Erbai insisted on personally handing over to the commander of the 4th Corps a primitive electrocardiogram report on the 6 desires heaven, which has considerable guiding significance for studying and overcoming this aggressive cosmic spirituality. This should be the first time humans have intercepted the primitive electrocardiogram of the 6 desires heaven, which can be considered a significant strategic discovery in the months before they were infected with the solar system. However, in today's heavy burden, Gu Jianxiu believes that this primitive electrocardiogram record can no longer play much role. I heard other warriors say that the resolution of the Great Migration has already been passed through internal voting within the People's Congress. We have also voted in favor. Is this true? Gu Jianxiu had some unexpected news spreading at a speed, but he didn't conceal anything. He admitted candidly, "It's true, this is a unified arrangement for the surviving humans on his home planet. 120 hours later, the Fourth Corps will release a broadcast and follow the orders of the People's Association to lead the Jincheng mothership to escape from Earth. He will land and rest at the core base on the ancient planet of Inghua. Then he will follow the main army to the Qimulang constellation, where it is said that there are no signs of the outbreak of the Six Desires Heaven." Liang Erbai immediately exclaimed, "The chance of the Jincheng mothership successfully taking off is very slim. That thing won't let us run away. This is not a concern for you anymore. I would like to apply for cooperation in combat with you. Our combat aircraft is very tight, and we don't have any extra to spare you. Do you want to fight against the Six Desires Heaven with a submachine gun? I can be a frontline investigator, and I have a level 2 Tianguan certificate, which is completely competent." After a while, Liang Erbai added, "I am mentally prepared for sacrifice." Liang Erbai's tone was very firm, and Gu Jianxiu did not persist. He said to the soldiers around him, "Take him to the reconnaissance company and ask if there is a shortage of people over there." Liang Erbai took a deep breath and bowed to Gu Jianxiu, "Thank you. Let's go." The soldier waved to Liang Erbai. The two of them walked a long way, one in front and one behind. It wasn't until they turned a few corners that Liang Erbai quietly asked, "I heard that Colonel Gu is a level V heavenly official, but he hasn't obtained the certification from Dumu Palace. Is that true?" The soldier proudly raised his chest and said, "I don't think those generals in the old Chang'an are more powerful than our valley commander." Liang Erbai looked up at the sky, and the white moon was missing a large piece. The remaining part was also riddled with holes, like a piece of cheese eaten by mice. It has already ascended to the sky, but the sky is still bright and dazzling. She sighed and said, "If Colonel Gu really is level V, today after the failure of the Tianxiuan expedition, he may be the last level V heavenly official of humanity." Jincheng Ancient Ship, Captain's Office. The continental plates on the 3D sand table resemble models that have been barely pieced together after being shattered, with numerous marked red flags inserted into the huge cracks that can be seen everywhere. The condition of this ancient continental plate under our feet is very unstable. Before long, Asia may split in half, and we will either be buried in the sea or thrown into space. There is not much time left for the Jincheng Ancient Ship to take off. Gu Jianxiu looked at the bright or dim red flag on the sand table, pointed to the largest and brightest one on the Rift Valley, and asked, "If the Fourth Corps can delay the interference of the attacking target, how much chance is there for the Jincheng mothership to take off?" "I'm sorry, I can't just talk nonsense. I can only say that it depends on how long the window period is, and this means that the Fourth Corps will be abandoned by the mothership, and all soldiers will die on this crumbling land." The other party swallowed the latter half of the sentence. Gu Jianxiu didn't seem to hear the other party's implied meaning, just focused on gesturing something to the sand table. "Colonel, there is an urgent telegram from the command center. Tian Ancient Star. Connect." The soldier walked quickly to the communication panel and connected the stereo projection of the ancient star of Tian. In the conference room where several different flags were hung, a golden-haired officer with medals hanging on his chest saluted Tani Jianxiu. "Hello, Colonel Gu." "Hello, sir. I am about to report to the operations center on the operational plan of the Fourth Corps to cover the evacuation of the Jincheng mothership. Let's put aside the operational plan in advance. The other party's Haitang language is particularly standard. Congratulations, Colonel. From now on, you have been promoted to the rank of General of the People's Communist Alliance, enjoying the treatment and honor of a Major General in all human countries. The command center has a very urgent task assigned to you. Please immediately drive the equipment number 0051 to Yuyang Spaceport near the capital of Haitang for standby." Gu Jianxiu narrowed his eyes and said, "What should the 4th Army Group and Jincheng City do?" The Haitang military will arrange additional personnel to take over the joint defense tasks of the 4th Corps. Where else do we have manpower? Nonsense, this is a joke about the lives of 5 million people in Jincheng. Gu Jianqiu's fierce tone surprised the officer, but he immediately emphasized, this is an order. Gu Jianqiu's face was covered in a thin layer of frost at some point, and it took him a while to say from his throat, damn it, foreign devils. The other party clearly understood. He widened his eyes, showing a shock, anger mixed with a hint of grievance, and then turned his gaze to the side. Cough cough, Jianqiu, it's me. The other screen lit up, showing a man with an Asian face, a youthful face, and gray temples. Yang Qifeng, the highest military officer of Haitang. The two of them almost joined the military at the same time, with nearly 200 years of friendship. They were both veteran figures in the Haitang military community, but today their military positions are vastly different, which is somewhat ironic. This is the organization's decision, please obey. Yinghuang also misses you very much. Fuck you. Gu Jianqiu didn't give face to anyone when he became confused. Yang Qifeng frowned and said, you're always like this. With your personality, you're not even qualified to be a general. The country shouldn't even award you the rank of colonel. Gu Jianqiu, you should be a big head soldier for the rest of your life. You can take the divine opportunity to come to Jincheng to announce this decision and kick me to the end. This is not an occasion for arguing. Yang Qifeng softened his tone and said, humans need you. Since the failure of the Tianguan expedition, we haven't had many level V heavenly officials anymore. Perhaps you are the last one. Step back, you have a more important mission. Humans once had hundreds of level V heavenly officials, and I couldn't do anything they couldn't do. But I can send 5 million people from Jincheng City out of their home planet alive. That's my mission. Gu Jianqiu's stubbornness completely exceeded the expectations of the members of the Human Association. In the 1-hour-long tug of war, everyone was helpless against Gu Jianqiu. What else could threaten a lone level V celestial official in the current human organization? Your behavior is cowardly, you know, Jianqiu, your behavior is cowardly. Yang Qifeng's tone trembled slightly as he said, actually, I have a lot to say to you, but unfortunately we don't have time anymore. Do you want to see Yinghuang? No need. Gu Jianqiu blurted it out, but after speaking, he vaguely regretted it. He always can't control his temper. Yang Qifeng was a bit disappointed and immediately sighed, whatever. Find the book Garden www.zhaosuiyuan.com. He said something to others in another country's language, and a brief and urgent argument erupted in the conference room, eventually calming down slowly. Yang Qifeng's last words made Gu Jianqiu's face feel a little relaxed. Report your battle plan. The main base of Yinghua Ancient Star is ready to accommodate the Jincheng mothership. In 120 hours. The magnificent ancient ship under his feet is the hope that millions of people rely on for survival. Gu Jianqiu suddenly lost the sense of such a heavy concept, and he can only confirm this from the camera transmitted from the ancient ship command room, in the endless orange hibernation chamber. Recalling Yang Qifeng's words, Gu Jianqiu's face lit up with a wry smile. The last human level V heavenly official. Sounds like a deserter. Colonel Gu, it's time. Gu Jianqiu took out a can of colorful throat candy from his pocket and shook it for a moment before realizing that the iron jar was empty. He put the iron jar containing throat candy back into his pocket and hesitated for a moment before asking the soldier beside him, is there any smoke? The soldier touched his pocket and quickly handed Gu Jianqiu a cigarette and lit it for him. Sir, I've known you for so long. I've never seen you smoke before, he said with a smile after seeing him skillfully smoke a cigarette. When I was young, my family was poor. I worked in a mine for 2 years to earn money and suffered from lung disease. As you know, it's best not to have organ transplantation surgery, so I've been conservative in treatment and quit smoking. But it doesn't matter today. Gu Jianqiu said so, but after taking a few puffs, he coughed violently. He extinguished his cigarette with some regret and boarded the independent cockpit. Preface 3. Final Battle. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The construction of the Lujiaxia Dam, which used to be called the Lujiaxia Dam, has now completely dried up. The independent cockpit flies over the dam, and you can see many large combat equipment of different forms standing under the artificial lake. Many of them are now scrapped and unable to fight anymore. Soldiers dismantle and reassemble the intact components, leaving only these steel structures that are difficult to recycle. At the end of the huge mechanical wreckage on the ground was a blazing fire, which was the combat machine piloted by Gu Jianqiu, who was on standby. I saw two folded flame wings towering into the clouds, enveloping a complete divine machine in the shape of a shuttle. Behind the steaming flames, the outline of the machine fluctuated like in water. As the solo cockpit sank into the flames, the snowy feathers that enveloped the aircraft slowly faded. The first thing that caught the eye was the back of the fuselage, which was lined up with 20.1 snowflake-shaped flame outlets arranged in a spine shape. The overall fuselage was snow-white, and the fuselage leaned against four silver wing suits in an embrace position. The head structure was covered in sharp diamond-shaped armor with a white background and red border. The plain muscle contours of the upper body appeared somewhat thin, and the black nerve bundles twisted into a robust waist-long-level divine machine, belonging to the 4th Corps of the 1st Field Army in Ganning Prefecture, included in the Supreme Heritage Act of Gu Haitang, with the People's Republic of China Joint Army Equipment No. 0051. Gu Xishenren entering the cockpit, Gu Jianqiu cleared his mind and pressed the speaker on the Ganning Prefecture Corps channel. This is the Jincheng Mothership. I am the Chief of Staff of the 4th Corps of the Ganyang Prefecture 1st Field Army, and my name is Gu Jianqiu. In accordance with Article 123 and Article 124 of the Temporary Command Regulations for Major Campaigns issued by the People's Congress in 2091, I have now lawfully obtained the command and combat power of the 4th Corps and are tasked with covering the evacuation of the Jincheng Mothership from the home planet. I request the assistance of Level 4 and above celestial officials for defense. The channel was completely silent. Gu Jianqiu switched expressionlessly to the Corps channel throughout the northwest region and repeated, "This is the Jincheng Mothership." Still a dead silence. Pan-Asia channel dead silence. Gu Jianqiu closed the Corps channel. The slightly drooping head of the goddess of Gusha suddenly lifted up, and two golden flames ignited in his dark eyes. The dark red color in the sky approached, and the rolling black clouds dispersed layer by layer, like a rippling black sea. The strong smell enveloped the earth, and the ignition of the Jincheng Mothership clearly alarmed something. On the firepower screen of the front-line observer, a sudden electrocardiogram reaction from 6 desires appeared, 1, 2. Blooming red dots almost filled the screen in just a few breaths. The observer swallowed his saliva and shouted to the combat channel, "There have been a large number of electrocardiogram reactions in the Rift Valley on the Eastern Front, with coordinates near XXX.XXX.XXX. Everyone is holding their breath, this is the moment of decisive battle." 21 flame outlets behind Gu Jianqiu's ancient divine machine roared together, unleashing a massive burst of white armor that soared into the sky. The narrow tail flame behind it spread for over 200 kilometers, almost instantly extinguishing all the electrocardiogram reactions that filled the Rift Valley. The red screen instantly became empty. However, such explosive destructive firepower still failed to contain the attack of 6 Desires Heaven. Instead, a more prominent, red and black ripple appeared on the firepower screen, without the need for observers to broadcast. The sky in the eyes of all soldiers was now completely occupied by dark red. The captain's cabin at the commanding height could clearly see the full picture of the dark red thing. An immensely huge face rose from the ground, first with a jet black bun and forehead, then with slightly narrowed phoenix eyes constantly rising, followed by a towering nose bridge, and finally with bright red lips and a slender neck. Until one could look straight at the ancient ship, this was a beautiful face with dark red skin, peaceful and noble, impeccable beauty. Passing through southern Hunan, with wings lifted in Chang'an, facing Ganyang, piercing through the surface of the earth with an unparalleled divine and magical posture, covering an area of over 4 million hectares, equivalent to the sum of 3 Jincheng cities. The highest target of the 1st Field Army in Ganyang Island is the front of the Gizmo. Countless black and blue aircraft models in service took off at this moment, piercing into the dark red sky together. The 2 white flame feathers spewed out by the goddess of Gu Shi were continuous and fiery, like a snowy dagger approaching the Ghost Mother. The Ghost Mother suddenly opened her eyes, and the goddess of Gu Shi was immediately exposed to the huge lake-like eyes of the Ghost Mother. At this moment, the 200-meter-high composite armored divine machine appeared so small. The stimulated Japanese mother grinned her red lips and grinned her mouth all the way to the back of her neck. The ridge-like layers of inverted pointed teeth immediately destroyed the beauty of her entire face. Gu Jianxiu's ear suddenly vibrated slightly, and the signal showed that it came from the ancient star of Taiyin. In the battle meeting, the command center would not intervene in Gu Jianxiu's behavior unless it was Gu Jianxiu felt a bit dazed and unconsciously pressed his finger to answer. A bright and angry voice came from over there. Gu Jianxiu, you bastard. The call was immediately cut off. Gu Jianxiu realized that he overestimated his ability to control emotions, and the abundant emotions were washing through his nerves. He turned on the radio switch with his hand, trying to divert his attention with other sounds. When family members are in trouble, their anger is 3,000 zhang high, when they break through enemy lines and fight against demons. The Beijing opera performer in his ear let out a furious roar, and the Japanese mother in front of him shook anxiously. The earth trembles and cracks, at the moment of the exchange of fire between the winged divine aircraft battle group of the 4th Corps and the Gizmo. The ground firepower also poured out in an instant, and the overflowing flames rippled endlessly on the Gizmo, with strong shaking and heat blocking everyone's view. In front of Gu Jianxiu was a sea of corpses and blood. The sharp teeth of the Ghost Mother were crowded with steel wreckage and human limbs and arms, and even Gu Jianxiu's familiar face could be vaguely seen. The strong and indelible smell of blood seemed to rush through the sealed cabin. The man remained indifferent to the large mouth of the blood basin in front of him, controlling the goddess of Gu to rush straight into the Ghost Mother's right eye, and suddenly triggered a huge wave of fire that could be observed in space. With a thunderbolt of spring thunder, no one knows on the plane. Through countless tough flesh and blood, Gu Jianxiu's vision had been blurred by red, and the scorching heat was roasting his combat nerve bundle. It was unknown how long it had been before Gu Jianxiu's eyes were finally empty. The goddess of the condor shot out from the back of the Japanese mother's brain, and the body was dissolved into an indistinguishable mass. Gu Jianxiu could no longer move, and his vision was difficult to confirm the battle situation. The enormous kinetic energy prompted the body and him to fly into space. Passing through the thin atmosphere, Gu Jianxiu began to see scattered space debris in front of him, including concrete, natural sand and stones, withered trees, and a large number of corpses. Among them were the indigo blue Ming Wang, dragons, angels, huge babies, and more were ordinary humans with indistinguishable and grotesque appearances. Until the shattered Gu Shishan man ran out of kinetic energy, Gu Jianxiu's height could already overlook the entire home planet. The war in Ganyang Prefecture is still burning, but Gu Jianxiu's ears are surprisingly quiet. The originally blue and white planet was bitten alive, even revealing a red rolling core. Several original continental plates squeezed against each other until they broke apart, and the edges of the seawater quickly evaporated, revealing dry and cracked rock layers. The ever-changing red scars were slowly and firmly spreading on the Earth's surface, and in some deep rift valleys, crimson mantle debris spewed out. The 6 Desires Heaven, nicknamed Cosmic Cancer, was born from the Earth's core, bathed in a 7,000-degree iron-nickel solution and grew. It pierced through the Earth's surface with a divine and demonic attitude and pure desire for destruction, devouring everything. Only from such a macro perspective did Gu Jianqiu deeply realize that even if he defeated the Six Desires Heaven, this devastated home planet would no longer be suitable for survival. The end of humanity is within reach. The gaze of the goddess of Gu Shishan was cast into the distant sun, passing through the blazing solar spot. Gu Jianqiu saw more indescribable shadows wriggling, and this relatively robust star was suffering from the same disease as Earth. Compared to the unknown black shadows behind the spot, the ghost mother in Ganyang Prefecture may not be worth mentioning at all. It's really cold. This is Gu Jianqiu's last thought before losing consciousness. Chapter 1. Family, Armor, Dogyard. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Gu Jianqiu opened his eyes, and the dazzling white light temporarily blurred his vision. The intense tinnitus and chaotic memory fragments in his brain made him unable to resist retching. Brother. Gu Jianqiu, who was holding his chest and taking a deep breath, lifted his head. His younger brother Gu Tianyu stood barefoot at the door, wearing only a pair of four-cornered underwear. His withered body exposed his ribs, and he was anxiously pursing his lips and staring at himself. Gu Jianqiu took a smooth breath and replied, "I'm fine. Put on your shoes and pour me a cup of hot water." Oh. Gu Tianyu ran away quickly. Jianqiu, have you had nightmares again?" My mother's voice came through the cement wall. Gu Jianqiu struggled and raised his voice, "I'm fine, Mom. I flipped over while sleeping and accidentally fell off." He took the hot water from Gu Tianyu's hand and rubbed his brother's broken hair, saying, "Go to sleep." Watching his younger brother leave, Gu Jianqiu drank the water in one breath. Tearing off the blue blanket that had faded from washing, I got out of bed and walked to the balcony in slippers, then let out a long sigh. A flurry of memory fragments surged in like a tide. Ghost Mother, surging winged divine aircraft, floating corpses in space, and the scorched remains of the goddess of Gu Shi. That's not a dream. He had already passed out in the cold space, but when he woke up, he arrived here. 200 years ago, the old begonia, and 200 years ago, the autumn of the valley soared. Today is May 2nd, 1884. I am 21 years old and a 2-year student in the Natural History Department of Jiangning Normal School. I have brothers and sisters at home, my mother is paralyzed in bed, and my family of 5 is squeezed into a 60-square-meter old Western-style building in Tianguan Square, Jiangning City. On the 10th of last month, my older brother Gu Shilo was beaten to death at the intersection of Jiming Temple. His body leaned against an old hand-painted wall full of heavenly maidens and Buddhas, with strings of blood droplets sliding from the end of his wet hair and merging with his liver and intestines that had been torn open and spilled all over the ground to form a large red pool. That scene was unforgettable for Gu Jianqiu for life. 3 months later, a sudden fire broke out in Tianguan Square, spreading and burning the entire building. Except for Gu Jianqiu, who happened to be away from home, his mother and siblings all died in the fire. Gu Jianqiu had doubted more than once before that the fire that changed his life was related to his brother's death. But that era was too chaotic, and the land of Crabapple was at war. Over the years, Gu Jianqiu has put in a lot of effort and only found out that the death of Gu Shilo may have been instigated by a local martial arts tycoon nicknamed Longpi Taibao. But just a few years after the death of the Longpi Taibao in Gu Shilo, he boarded a spaceship to Qinji Ancient Star amidst the wave of immigrants, and died halfway on the ship. Gu Jianqiu's clue was also terminated here. With this in mind, Gu Jianqiu remembered something else and returned to his room, pulling out a pair of blood-stained armbands from under the bunk of the high and low beds. This pair of armor weighs about 15 kilograms and is overall in a bluish-black color. The structure is not very precise, but it is made of sufficient materials. The most distinctive feature is that the joints connecting the fingers and palms are equipped with dark red bearings, and the elbows are wrapped in unknown glossy leather. The words, Zijing Heavy Industry, are also written in white printing on it. From the appearance, this is a pair of basic industrial arm armor used for crushing stones. The manufacturer was the well-known national capital, Zhejiang Heavy Industry, at that time, with a cost of about 2,000 yuan. The threshold for using this type of mining arm armor is low, only taking up 2 to 3 basic electrocardiogram signals, which can be carried by healthy adult males. Most miners working in Jiangning use this type of armor. Meanwhile, this pair of arm armor is also the only valuable relic left by Gu Shilo. Gu Jianqiu picked up one of them with both hands and played with it for a while, only to realize that the companions, who had accompanied him through the most difficult days in his past life, were so heavy for him now. In his past life, Gu Jianqiu wandered the streets for several years and couldn't even afford to eat. However, considering that it was a relic of Gu Shilo, Gu Jianqiu never had the idea of selling this pair of arm armor. This is the most correct decision made by Gu Jianqiu in his past life. He put on this pair of arm armor, inserted his 5 fingers into the cold and tactile metal knuckles, took a deep breath, and saw a crisp click. The visible blue current flickered between Gu Jianqiu's fingers. He moved his fingers and wanted to pick up the water cup with his right hand, but as soon as he exerted force, the glass water cup was crushed. Not at all. Gu Jianqiu frowned, thinking that to truly activate this pair of arm armor, it would take at least 15 basic electrocardiograms. From the results just now, Gu Jianqiu estimated that his current basic electrocardiogram is probably between 5 and 6, which is far from enough to fully unleash the true power of this pair of arm armor. Jianqiu, are you still awake? It's the voice of the older sister. Just go to sleep, sister. Gu Jianqiu felt a bit helpless, but still put away his arm armor, turned off the light, and fell asleep obediently. The next day after dinner, Gu Jianqiu tidied up the dishes and said hello to his elder sister and mother, and left early in the morning. When he walked out of the narrow alley, he looked back at the Tiananmen Square. The dark buildings with more than 20 floors were hung with various colorful memorial archway and clothes. The distance between the two buildings was not even enough to allow adult men to open their arms. The lines for receiving electric lights from various households were tangled in a mess on the windows. Some lines were aging and had exposed their inner cores, which could tell the fire hazard at a glance. Let's move out first when conditions are more favorable. Gu Jianqiu thought to himself. Jiangning is one of the top seaport cities in Haitang, with developed shipping. The hotel street adjacent to the port is even more diverse, with a mix of good and bad elements, such as the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Whether it's the city people on the other side of the ocean, the Jili people who claim to represent human will, or the Jinju people who have been in constant geopolitical friction with Haitang and have experienced multiple wars over the past century, they can all be seen here, and even the celestial beings from the distant universe can occasionally be seen. The hotels, restaurants, tea houses, martial arts venues, and drama clubs on the street were overwhelming, and there was also the Yuan Dog Grottos, which was known as the top-selling golden cave in the Far East at that time. It was a gambling den that many merchants who came to Jiangning talked about. Gu Jianqiu walked on the spacious street lined with flower beds and billboards, his gaze unconsciously glancing at the large poster of a girl on the roadside. A beautiful face, fluffy long hair, a Sioux-style black qipao embroidered with peony flowers. The bold printed font below it read, "Warmly celebrate the record of a 5-month sequel to The Legend of Haitang Yinglai. The final performance date is May 20th, 1884 in the New Year's calendar, and the famous actress Hui Yanling invites you to join Jiangning Drama Society. See you and don't leave." However, under the poster depicting a beautiful woman, there were few doors left. On the contrary, across from the Jiangning Drama Society, in front of a large newspaper printed in an exaggerated Citigroup character style, there were many people discussing it. On the poster, there is a brown city dog with protruding hind legs. Across from it is a man holding a chainsaw and a single blade, with exposed tendons and flesh. He has a blue tiger head tattooed on his back and a calm beard on his face. One person and one dog are facing each other from side to side. The city dog depicted in the painting underwent significant surgical modifications, with both eyes and jawbones covered in silver metal. The position of the right eye was replaced with a bright red crystal, and several red-green lines were exposed under the fur of the chest. One forelimb was also replaced with sharper steel components. The title is written in eye-catching red. The killer bit dog of the Yizhu versus the reserve martial Daoist of the Zhantianguan. Who will win the battle? Chapter 2. Longpi Taibao, Painted Dragon Single Soldier, New 6 Schools. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Isn't it a shame to ask Master Hu to fight the dog? A man dressed as a porter pointed at the poster and shouted loudly. Master Hu signed a life and death certificate, and Longpi Taibao wanted his life. If it's obvious that people's lives are being neglected, the government won't take care of it. I heard that there are still shares of the naval commander Changluan in the Yuan dog farm. Who dares to manage them? Dog fighting has been the hottest and most fashionable fighting scene in recent years, introduced from Citigroup and quickly established in China, giving birth to a huge industrial chain. Many high-ranking officials and nobles who are passionate about this sport are willing to spend a lot of money to purchase dogs locally from Citigroup and hire doctors to perform surgeries on their beloved dogs. The parameters of dog culture and various armed reproductive systems have also become a topic of discussion in the upper-class society. As the largest trading port for Haitang Citigroup's commodities, Jiangning quickly flourished in dog fighting and animal breeding technology, and later developed dog fighting lottery. Many local tycoons made huge profits through this, and the Longpi Taibao was one of them. The Yuan dog farm in front of him was established by him. The crowd whispered in unison, and most of the people were filled with righteous indignation. After listening for a while, Gu Jianxiu, who was squeezed in the crowd, turned around and left. The sign displayed in the advertisement is Tianguan Reserve, but Gu Jianxiu knows that there has never been such a term for Tianguan Reserve. The so-called reserve in the folk generally refers to 20 standard electrocardiograms or more, which is the qualification standard for level 1 Tianguan in Dumu Palace. 20 standard electrocardiograms, of course, are far from being a legitimate celestial official, but their level is much stronger than that of Gu Jianxiu's current electrocardiograms. Moreover, that bearded man can be called a master, indicating that he is an official member of the Haitang Martial Arts Association and has the qualification to open a school and teach disciples. In Jiangning, there are at least dozens of disciples and grandchildren, not just some inexperienced young man. Even he is forced to compete with the dog on the ring by the Taibao, and the name of the Longpi Taibao is not for nothing. Not to mention that there may be a second-grade naval supervisor behind the Yuan dog farm. Gu Jianxiu knows that he wants to investigate the cause of his brother's death, so he must be cautious. The urgent task is to increase the electrocardiogram to at least 15 basic units, so as to preliminarily activate the pair of armor left by brother Gu Shilo. In today's human world, practicing martial arts and meditation are the oldest and relatively simple ways to improve one's own electrocardiogram level. For example, the poster shows Master Hu with a tiger head tattoo. He was originally a practitioner of Shaolin 8-hair sect martial arts for many years, which is why his electrocardiogram level is different from that of ordinary people. As a top heavenly official in his previous life, Gu Jianxiu had no less than 4 or 5 martial arts mnemonics and training techniques that had been leading this for over 100 years. With these alone, he was confident that he could improve his electrocardiogram level to 15 basic units within 6 months. But for him, it's still too slow. In 1 month, Gu Jianxiu set a goal for herself to achieve 15 basic electrocardiograms within 1 month. Walking to the center of Hotel Street, Gu Jianxiu finally stopped in front of a gray wall, and the cracked wall in front of him was covered with colorful advertising paper. Hongsheng Martial Arts School is recruiting accompanying martial artists for 1,500 yuan per month, including food and accommodation. Address: 0 Basic ECG Development, Licensed Official Training, deposit of 100,000 yuan, full refund for students ECG less than 8.0 after completing the semester. Fengtang Mine recruits temporary workers who are free of deposit on the same day of employment. Gu Jianxiu smoothed out the crumpled advertising paper and carefully read the words on it, crossing over many useless information. Finally found the information I needed in the corner. Dragon Painter recruits tellers and requires a 2-year or higher diploma from the Empire's new 6 schools, with a monthly salary of 5,000 yuan and an address. Entering the alleyway of this hotel street, the Hualong hot soldier with a storefront of less than 30 square meters first catches the eye with the high-hanging deer antlers. The display walls on both sides are filled with various firearms and other unknown gunpowder devices, and the air is filled with a pungent smell of gunpowder and gun oil. The decoration is not like a store opened by a Haitang person, but more like the style of a Citigroup person. This shop only serves foreigners and new army officers. Young man, you must have gone to the wrong place. As soon as Gu Jianxiu entered the door, the boss on the bear-skin sofa took off his hat and stared at him with a smile. This person appears to be in his 40s, looking very friendly. His hair color and facial features are no different from those of a begonia person, and his accent is quite standard, even with a hint of Yuzhou accent. However, his blue pupils and thick hair on his arms all indicate that he is a mixed-race person. I don't think I made a mistake. I want to apply for the position of a teller at this store. Gu Jianxiu nodded his head in a calm and respectful manner. Ha ha ha, it seems like we posted an advertisement. The boss stood up with a loud laugh and casually took off a rifle from the counter, throwing it into Gu Jianxiu's arms. Do you know this thing? Gu Jianxiu just glanced at it and blurted out, the M9 Garland rapid shooting rifle, the highest production explosive rifle of the century in the royal arsenal of the Geely people, occupies 10 standard electrocardiograms. The boss was a bit surprised and glanced at Gu Jianxiu. Zhaozuiyuan.com Gu Jianxiu shook his head and said, I was a military instructor at the university, and Lu Shuriying served as the manager of the Jiangning firearms camp. This knowledge of firearms is not very important to me. The boss looked at Gu Jianxiu with his chin pinched. Have you read the military academy? Nanyang Military Equipment. Jiangning Normal School, Natural History Department. The boss intentionally showed a disappointed expression and said, Normal School. Gu Jianxiu still responded calmly, the knowledge of the Natural History Department is just right for this job. Jiangning Normal University and Nanyang Army are both the new 6 schools of the Empire, which meet the recruitment requirements. Lu Yi, the chief lecturer of our school, is a level 3 heavenly official who has sailed through the city walls. He is more outstanding than any natural history lecturer of Nanyang Military Equipment. Besides, how could a graduate of Nanyang Military Equipment become a Far East teller for a Citigroup private armed company? The so-called Imperial New 6 schools were supervised by the Governor-General of Liangjiang, Wei Guangxi, and were established to cultivate talents who could adapt to the unprecedented great changes. They were 6 new-style schools that collected taxes from the empire for 30 years. The new 6 schools did indeed cultivate many talents for various industries of Haitang in later generations, and the emerging new learning forces also swept away the old style of the empire that had accumulated drawbacks for thousands of years. As for later, the students of the new 6th school broke away from each other due to their respective positions as royalists and republicans, and even met in battle on the battlefield. That's what we will talk about later. The boss was not moved by Gu Jianxiu's words, but shook his head. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he turned to ask, have you ever taught the surgery of transforming male genitalia in your natural history department? I have taught. Gu Jianxiu speaks shamelessly. Follow me. The boss pulled Gu Jianxiu through the dirty and messy small courtyard behind the store, walked into a damp room with an alcohol smell, and pointed to a dying modified bulldog in the cage, saying, fix it, this job is yours. Chapter 3. Fine Dog, Surgery, Almost New. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This is a Shandong fine dog with pure bloodline, which is a native hunting dog of Haitang. Its head is narrow and long, with brownish-red hair, long and developed hind limbs, and a cluster of long hair growing above its fleshy toes. From its appearance, there is no trace of it having undergone any reproductive transformation, just like an ordinary fine dog, with its lower body immersed in a dry pool of blood. Upon hearing any movement, the small dog nestled in the iron cage lifted its eyelids and glanced at the boss with damp eyes, then closed its eyes. The boss took out a box of cigars and smoked one from inside. "Do you teach Xianggo in the Museum Science Education of Jiangning Normal University?" Gu Jinxiu shook his head. The other person boasted and said, "This dog's appearance is called Foot on Red Cloud. According to our Haitang people's dog fighting skills, it is a top-notch fighting dog. I spent a full 40,000 yuan to buy it. I was hoping to make a big profit, but who knew I met that killer bit on my debut." He cut off one end of his cigar and muttered in a slutty voice, "The city devils of dog days are inhumane. As a hybrid breed of humans and dogs, they will sooner or later be punished by heaven." The rumor that Citigroup businessmen engage in human-dog hybridization is a result of the large-scale introduction of Haitang into Citigroup's local dog breeds. This is because the upper limit of the electrocardiogram of Citigroup dogs is much higher than that of Haitang's local fighting dogs, almost equivalent to adults. The electrocardiogram of purebred bit dogs can reach 6 to 7 standard electrocardiograms, which can be used for very exaggerated reproductive modifications. Over time, the common people began to legend that Citigroup's dogs were produced through illegal human-dog hybridization experiments, which is why they are so powerful. In fact, this kind of rumor is absurd and even those with a little medical knowledge would not believe it, but gamblers who have lost red-eye don't care about it, and the rumor has only intensified. This hot soldier boss, who has both Citigroup and Haitang bloodlines, cursed the Citigroup devil in a standard Yuzhou accent for 3 to 4 minutes, but still continued to talk incessantly. Gu Jinxiu had to interrupt him, "I want to see the wound first. Can you take it out?" The boss glanced at the cigar in his hand and then at the fighting dog in the cage, whose fur was stained with blood. After hesitating for a while, he said, "You can do it yourself. Don't worry, it won't bite." Gu Jinxiu helplessly picked up a can of sealed packaging from the corner, opened the pull ring, grabbed a handful of bright red minced meat from inside, and handed it to the hound's mouth. After it finished eating it in a small bite, he opened the iron cage and picked up the severely injured hound. Gu Jinxiu dares to boast, but of course, he does not lack any reliance. In the later human wars, the transformation of war-induced reproductive system has become quite popular, and basic reproductive system implantation and emergency surgery have become important subjects included in the training and assessment of new Haitang officers. Gu Jinxiu himself has also done multiple wartime emergency treatments for his comrades, and his experience is relatively rich. There are 3 wounds on this fine dog, 1 long and 2 short, spreading diagonally from the waist and back, with a diameter of over 30 centimeters. Gu Jinxiu picked up the sterile curved forceps on the table and penetrated deep into the wound, realizing that it was much deeper than it appeared. He couldn't help but flash the metal claws of the killer bite in his mind. "The wound is too deep, and I'm not entirely sure. I think it's better for you to send it to a professional dog maker. As long as the injured internal organs are replaced and sutured, the probability of survival is high. However, this fighting dog's kidney is severely damaged. If the original kidney and a part of the appendix are replaced, the dog's electrocardiogram will be less than 2, and it will not be able to undergo any further modifications or go to the fighting arena in the future." The boss had some doubts about Gu Jinxiu at first. Hearing Gu Jinxiu's words and the judgment of those dog reformers, his face relaxed a little. He waved his hand and said, "Can you treat it? It will cost 5,000 yuan to go to the operating table in the hospital, and the ECG recovery and drug fees will be calculated separately. The dog reformers in the casino will not be much cheaper. It is more expensive to operate on dogs than his mother people these years." I have spent 50,000 or 60,000 yuan on this dog before and after, and I will pay more if I can't go to the dog farm. He lowered his voice and said, it's really not possible. You can use some medicine and sew the wound casually. It's not visible on the outside, just make it bounce around. I contacted the next owner and sold the dog. I can also stop the loss. I have complete surgical equipment here, anti-inflammatory, sedative, and anti-inflammatory drugs. Can you do it? I not only hire you, but also give you a red envelope of 2,000 yuan. How about that? What should I do if I die? Compensation is guaranteed. Gu Jinxiu stared at the other person with a smile on his face. The shop owner glanced at his mouth and said, if I die, I'll be unlucky. Is that enough? It's a deal. What about the equipment? As stated in advance, I only have 6 electrocardiograms and it's still a basic type. I can't use advanced surgical equipment. It's not a major surgery, you don't need expensive equipment. The boss took a strong breath and extinguished the cigar in his hand. He pushed in a modified operating table that was over a meter high from the outside and tapped on the steel frame with his finger joints. Boston equipment, authentic Citigroup products, almost brand new, can be operated with 5 basic electrocardiograms. Can you use it? Gu Jinxiu walked up to the operating table and looked up and down. It was basically the castration version of the old-fashioned reproductive reconstruction table, which could only be done with simple implantation and suturing, and the difficulty of getting started was not high. Gu Jinxiu picked up 2 electric patch rings on the stage and fastened them to his left and right wrists. At the same time, he turned on the auxiliary power supply on the operating table and looked for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. He felt a surge of water rushing through his chest, and the signal light on the operating table suddenly emitted a green light. Gu Jinxiu's heart twitched as the arm and claw on one side of the operating table suddenly lifted and spun at a constant speed in front of Gu Jinxiu. The electric pliers are intact. The syringe was pushed back and forth with a slight electric sound, and Gu Jinxiu immediately became familiar with the injection measurement. The syringe is intact. Shadowless lamp 2 8 shadowless lamps burst out with strong light, suddenly tearing apart. One of the shadowless lamps emitted a bright yellow spark from its core, which instantly extinguished for more than half, and remained motionless for a long time. Gu Jinxiu looked at the hot soldier boss and said with a bitter smile, almost brand new, huh? Last time, there was definitely no problem. The boss's face felt a bit uneasy and came over to play with it for a while. I'll make do with it. It shouldn't be a problem. Gu Jinxiu couldn't help but interrupt the boss's actions and carried the hunting dog onto the operating table. After injecting anesthesia, the surgery officially began. The whole process showed that the hunting dog was very lethargic, seeming to know that Gu Jinxiu had no ill intentions, or perhaps he had lost the strength to resist. When the electric forceps opened the wound, Gu Jinxiu finally knew what kind of modification this seemingly ordinary fine dog had undergone. It was clear that the skeleton of this fine dog was not a normal bone white, but presented a carbon black color between blood vessels and muscle tissue. There is also a blue signal light between the joints, flickering incessantly as it follows the hound's breath, as if it is about to go out. According to the modification record text provided by the boss of the hot soldier, this black artificial bone can greatly enhance the fighting ability and reaction speed of the fighting dog. Among the modification surgeries that can be applied to fighting dogs, it is the most expensive one, and coupled with the high price of the Shanghai Tang fine dog itself, it has indeed cost a lot of money. Chapter 4. 6 Desire for Heaven, Mortgage, Huge Money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The surgery process was very dull and bloody. At first, the boss stretched his neck to take a look, then rubbed his eyes and yawned, opening the fence door and smoking outside. Gu Jinxiu stood expressionlessly in front of the operating table, observing with the naked eye the input doses of anesthetics and anti-rejection drugs. Various medical forceps, hooks, and bundles flipped up and down, debridement, removal, surgical incision, donor implantation, and vascular suturing. Even Gu Jianqiu himself was surprised by the smoothness of the surgical process. With his current heart rate, he was able to precisely control such medical professional equipment for more than an hour. Even the most basic model, this is a miracle of no small or large. Until the final stage of electrocardiographic resuscitation during the surgery, Gu Jianqiu surprisingly did not feel any fatigue, and even felt more energetic than before. He took a deep breath and relaxed a bit. The next part of the surgery was the simplest part of the electrocardiographic resuscitation, which was similar to the physical defibrillation of the heart. The modified dog's brain and heart were stimulated by the modified person's external electrocardiogram to adapt to the newly implanted implant. The operation is simple and not difficult, as long as the equipment is suitable, even high school students like Gu Tianyu can easily complete it. Gu Jianqiu pressed the button. A small bright yellow electric spark erupted on the surface of the entire operating table. Before Gu Jianqiu could react, a strong electric current instantly enveloped the operating table, the fine dog on the table, and himself. The current was not an ordinary bright yellow, but a mixture of red, blue, and black, full of evil colors, reminiscent of a contaminated oil pool, which was uncomfortable. A shadowless lamp overheated and exploded, with sharp glass shards brushing against Gu Jianqiu's temples. Blood flowed down like a bright red snake, and Gu Jianqiu cursed ominously. He forcefully removed the electric patch ring from his left and right hands and took 5 or 6 steps back. All the indicator lights on the operating table had already been completely extinguished, and a faint burning smell floated in the air. What happened just now? Gu Jianqiu's face was gloomy, and the unique and familiar electrocardiogram just now made his heart sink to the bottom of the valley in an instant. The 6 desires heaven. The boss who heard the commotion pushed the door in and the cigar in his mouth swayed up and down, saying, "We're done." He shrugged his nose twice, took off his cigar, took a few steps forward, pressed and tapped around the operating table, muttering, "Can you really do it?" As he flipped through the fine dog on the operating table, he realized that the wound of the modified dog had already been sutured and its breathing had stabilized a lot. He was immediately overjoyed. Gu Jianqiu touched his temples, but the wound was not deep. At this point, the bleeding had stopped. He picked up the red potion on the table with the words, "Kanpu," printed on it, unscrewed the bottle cap, and dipped it with a cotton swab. While wiping the wound, he asked, "When can I come to work?" "You can do it any time." "Cough, have you brought your graduation diploma?" "I need to register." Gu Jianqiu took out the graduation diploma from Jiangning Normal School, which had been prepared for a long time, from his shirt pocket. Finally, he rubbed the golden perm on it and handed it to the other party. "I want to advance some salary." The boss frowned and said, "How much is it?" 60,000 yuan. The owner of the individual soldier shop then shifted his gaze from his diploma certificate to Gu Jianqiu's face and said, "How much do you say?" 60,000, my annual salary. The boss scrutinized Gu Jianqiu up and down, then leaned over his shoulder and sniffed hard. He noticed that there was no smell of opium tincture, so he said with a smile on his face, "Sure, but your academic certificate needs to be mortgaged to me at 2 points. When will you repay the money and take it away?" The boss said something and wanted to take away Gu Jianqiu's academic credentials, but he didn't budge. Mortgage is acceptable, interest is not negotiable. The boss deliberately thought for a while before saying, "I can only give you 40,000. The graduation diploma from the Empire's new 6 schools is a very scarce commodity in the black market, as the cover has complex craftsmanship and the hot stamping material is extremely precious cosmic metal, making it difficult to imitate. Many inexperienced second-generation miners from remote ancient stars are very willing to buy a diploma from the new 6 schools for tens of thousands of yuan to decorate their appearance. Or deceive your distant parents with this. When the market is good, a graduation diploma from Nanyang Military Academy can be sold for a high price of over 100,000 yuan. Even for a teacher training academy graduated by Gu Jianxiu, the price is generally not less than 40,000 yuan. Gu Jianxiu shook his head and saw what the boss wanted to say. He quickly said, "The empire has always had regulations that orders for foreign individual soldiers to purchase, with an amount of more than 200,000 yuan, must be approved by a legitimate individual soldier shop guaranteed by a heavenly official. Otherwise, they will not be approved." However, the procurement conditions for the newly established Equipment Manufacturing Bureau in Jiangning are much more relaxed. As long as there is a graduate from the new 6th school who is willing to use their academic credentials as collateral, it meets the written procedure. For 60,000 yuan, I guarantee that I will not come to take this diploma within 5 years. The boss pursed his lips and said, "Jiangning's Equipment Manufacturing Bureau has only been in operation for over a month. Are you very well informed? Where did you know about this?" Gu Jianxiu looked embarrassed and hesitated for a while before saying, "The eldest son of Cui Richang, the factory manager of the Equipment Manufacturing Bureau, is my good friend. I heard it from him." Cui Shouqi, a prominent family member in Jiangning, also known as the curling pot, is a representative figure of new learning. He has a wide range of friends and is known for his generous actions, earning him the reputation of being one of the 4 young masters of the Southern Kingdom. He invested in the establishment of some heavy industry enterprises in the direction of people's livelihood, but later died in an assassination attempt by the ruling faction due to some extremist remarks. Gu Jianxiu did not have a deep friendship with this person in his past life. The most profound impression was that he participated in the defense of the Yellow Sea against the Jinju people. Cui Shouqi once came to the labor force and had a meal with him at the same table. Because the two were from the same hometown, he said a few words. The boss slapped his forehead and said, "I understand. You're not here to apply, you're here to sell your academic credentials." "No, I really need this job, but I did encounter some difficulties." "You don't smoke opium. Gambling debts. Women." Gu Jianxiu just smiled and didn't speak. "Wait." The boss left the room and after a while walked back with a bulging craft paper bag, placing it in front of Gu Jianxiu. "There's 82,000 here. 2,000 is your red envelope, and 80,000 is your annual salary. You don't want to take this diploma back. I'm not a pawnshop here. You agree, take the money, come to work on Monday, but if you don't agree, you'll take 2,000 yuan and leave." Gu Jianxiu opened the craft paper bag, carefully counted the money, confirmed it was correct, and then put it into his pocket. He looked up and asked, "How do you call it?" "Tom Chen." "Just call me Boss Chen." "Hello boss. I won't disturb you for now. See you on Monday." Gu Jianxiu quickly stood up and suddenly remembered something. "I'll get a work permit before leaving. When I came, I was interrogated by the police once." Tom was obviously in a good mood. He lit another cigar and waved from Gu Jianxiu. The two of them left the rudimentary renovation room and returned to the reception hall. He dug out a blank work license from the messy compartments under his counter, casually stamped it with a steel seal, and threw it to Gu Jianxiu. "Take a photo of yourself and paste it. Report on Monday at 9 o'clock. Chapter 5. Heaven and Man, Heart Glaze, Sword Robe Lord. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At that time, the war had not yet affected the domestic market, and prices were still relatively stable. The Henyuan vegetable market, located north of Tianrenfang, sells 1 kilogram of high-quality pork belly for between 25 and 30 yuan. The monthly salary of the red hat patrolman on the street is about 400 yuan, and the income of ordinary small citizens is slightly lower than this figure. In stark contrast to the difficult livelihood of the people, the high and intimidating treatment of intellectuals and high-level electrocardiographers. Taking the Jiangnan Normal School where Gu Jianxiu graduated, a level 6 teaching assistant can often earn a salary of over 2,000 yuan, with various subsidies in winter and summer, totaling about 4 to 500 yuan, which is very respectable. As for the various teachers and principals hired by the university, they often earn salaries exceeding 10,000 yuan. With just legitimate income, it doesn't take a few years to buy a good 3-bedroom house in a prime location in Jiangning. 80,000 yuan is money that many people cannot earn in their lifetime. Stepping out of the dragon painting soldier's store, Gu Jianxiu frowned and walked along the crossroads of Hotel Street with a heart full of worries. At first glance, he looked like a newly heartbroken male student. What is that evil-colored electrocardiogram? Gu Jianxiu suddenly remembered that before the final battle with the Japanese mother, the staff of the local ECG research institute had risked their lives to send themselves an ECG sample. Although it was not very helpful in the war, Gu Jianxiu still recorded that unique ECG fluctuation. Is it related to that electrocardiogram sample? Even on the eve of the near destruction of the parent planet, humans knew very little about the 6 desires heaven, and even how it spread was at a loss. Thinking about the terror of this cosmic spirituality that almost wiped out the highly developed human civilization in later generations, Gu Jianxiu felt indescribable annoyance in his heart. As expected, Gu Jianxiu's eyes were suddenly shrouded in shadows. He raised his head and stood in front of an extremely tall figure, about 2.23 meters tall, with a translucent crystal blue skin. He was wearing a tight-fitting black robe, with empty hair and eyebrows. He wore a pair of expensive Hermione lenses on his face, making it difficult to determine his age. Heaven and humanity. Is there anything on my face? Tianren, who was staring at the billboard, noticed Gu Jianxiu's gaze and smiled. Jixiang, one of the most widely distributed and powerful heavenly beings among the 20.8 constellations, is a branch of the Buddha. The widespread practice of reproductive technology among humans has originated from the Jixiang people. I'm sorry. Gu Jianxiu nodded in greeting and then avoided him. The other party didn't care either, as if accustomed to the human gaze on him, and continued to concentrate on reading the promotional signs in Hui Yanling's illustrated newspaper. He stood in the center of the crossroads, dressed in a long robe, like a statue. Gu Jianxiu came to a photo studio and spent 20 cents taking 4 ID photos. He asked the boss for glue and pasted it on the work permit given to him by Tom Chen. Then he took a tram all the way to the industrial area in the suburbs, where several large civil aviation factories and metallurgical plants in Jiangning were located. After searching for a long time, Gu Jianxiu finally walked into the door of a house with a 3 Harmony plaque hanging on it. Hello, Sanhexen Iron Works. In a hurry, a waiter came to entertain me, and Gu Jianxiu handed over the work permit that had just been completed. I'm a dragon painter, and my boss's surname is Chen. I need 500 heart glazed tubes and 200 kilograms of 95% purity heart glazed ore. Can I do it? The guy blinked and his smile grew stronger. You have a sip of tea first, and I'll call our manager over, he said. After about a quarter of an hour, a middle-aged man with a big belly walked in, wiping his sweat and shouting loudly, Mr. Chen, who is a solo painter of dragons, isn't he? 500 heart glazed tubes, you can make them. Hello, hello. As soon as he came in, he grabbed Gu Jianxiu's hand and noticed that his hand was still wet with sweat. He awkwardly withdrew it and wiped it on his chest, speaking in a local Jiangning accent, I'm sorry, my surname is He, and how do you call me? My surname is Gu Jianxiu. Brother Gu, you're right to come to us. Although Sanhexen is not a time-honored brand in Jiangning, the quality of our products is definitely not inferior to any major metallurgical plant. Our blast furnaces and equipment are all purchased at a high price from Zijing Heavy Industry. Do you know Zijing Heavy Industry? He blushed and patted his chest. Gu Jianxiu certainly believes in the quality of Sanhexen's products. In the next 30 years, this metallurgical plant has defeated the nationally renowned national brand of Haitang, Zijing Heavy Industry, and jumped to become an industry leader. The behind-the-scenes boss has also become one of the top figures in Jiangning, enough to leave a lasting impression on the contemporary industrial history of Haitang. Longpi Taibao is nothing compared to the industrialist who later became known as the Sword Robe Lord. However, the current 3-in-1 heart really looks a bit embarrassed. I want to see a sample. Gu Jinxiu made a request. Of course. Come on. Speaking, manager he warmly led Gu Jinxiu to the workshop. Heart glaze is an important raw material for the divine machine industry, known as the nerve center of the divine machine industry. Almost all divine machine manufacturing cannot do without this important material. Its main function is to manufacture the conduction beam and coating of electrocardiogram. For example, the operating table operated by Gu Jinxiu in the morning requires the use of a material called heart glaze, which includes 2 adhesive rings and the wiring inside the core. It goes without saying that in Jiangning, metallurgy was one of the pillar industries of the Begonia Empire's foreign trade at that time. Especially in the extraction of high-purity heart glaze, the technical level of crabapple is among the best in various countries around the world. Although Citigroup and Jinju have been chasing after each other fiercely in recent years, coupled with a shortage of raw materials for several ancient stars, the reputation of Haitang as the first metallurgical country of humanity has been on the verge of collapse. However, the inertia and first-mover advantage brought about by hundreds of years of trade are not easily eliminated. Gu Jinxiu picked up a heart-shaped glazed tube and held it in his hand. The diameter is about 66 mm and the length is about 300 mm. It is a very standard civilian heart glaze specification. He thought to himself. It seemed that something had come to mind, and Gu Jinxiu's face showed a nostalgic smile. How's it going? I believe your factory has the ability to meet this order by refining this standard heart-glazed tube. That's for sure. The manager's smile was even brighter. Sanhexen is a newly established metallurgical factory, unable to handle orders from old factories. On the contrary, it is these foreign military industrial factories with a background in Citigroup. Sanhexen has a great opportunity to dig corners. The best-selling series of external armor skeletons for the Dragon Warrior requires at least a dozen heart-glazed tubes per aircraft, which is a long-term business. When can I pick up the goods? 2 months. But in terms of price, our standard is the same as Zijing Industry, with a 10% deposit. How about that? Gu Jinxiu shook his head and said, if that's the case, I might as well go to Zijing Industry. Why did I come to you? How much do you say? I can waive the unit price, but the maximum deposit is 5%, and the remaining amount will be paid on delivery. This. Gu Jinxiu didn't even look at the other party, so he picked up an orange-yellow raw ore and began to scrutinize it. Zhaoshuyuan.com. Okay. Just 5%. I'll place your order now. He Zixing immediately made the decision, and this condition was much more lenient than he had anticipated. He explained something to the clerk under his command. After a while, the clerk returned with a freshly printed receipt and handed it to He Zibang, who then handed it to Gu Jinxiu with both hands. The total price is 1,080,450 yuan. The deposit is about 50,000 yuan, which is similar to what Gu Jinxiu had anticipated. The price of products like heart glaze has been fluctuating with the fluctuations of the raw material market. 2 months later, Gu Jinxiu can pick up the goods directly from Sanhexen with this receipt and the remaining money. During the gap between waiting for the handover procedures, which took about a pot of tea, He Zixing had already been chatting and laughing with Gu Jinxiu, as if they were long-lost friends. Manager He, I have another request. Gu Jinxiu pointed to these samples and said, I need to take them back to my boss for inspection. Is that okay? Of course. That's right. If there are any issues with Sanhexen's products, feel free to contact me anytime and I'll leave you a phone number. He copied a note and stuffed it into Gu Jinxiu's pocket. Gu Jianxiu noticed that besides the phone number in his pocket, He Zixing also stuffed a roll of colorful banknotes into his pocket. He touched them for about 500 to 600 yuan, and his face became complicated for a moment. "Brother Gu, call me when you have time." He Zixing vigorously patted Gu Jianxiu's shoulder. "Farewell to He Shisheng." Gu Jianxiu put away the 50,000 yuan worth of receipts. The sky was already around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and with the time to catch up, it was just enough to catch dinner. When he thought of his family, Gu Jianxiu's mood suddenly improved a lot. He forgot all his worries for a moment and walked towards home. Chapter 6. Newspaper, Juliet, The Death of the West Tower. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The creaking old trams shuttled through the streets of Jiangning, with hurried people crowded into their seats, some dozing off with their heads down, while others scrutinized a black and white newspaper with a mix of begonia square characters and chickenly letters. Gu Jianxiu held a hanging ring in one hand and read the headline of the newspaper in the hand of the old man across from him, relying on a little sunlight at dusk. The general strike has come to an end. According to this newspaper, the massive strike of Jiangning mining workers finally came to an end on Friday. Recently, the Fengtang mine, which had been suspended for more than half a month, announced the full resumption of mining, and all workers started working normally. Dang 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 dang. The copper bell on the roof emitted a piercing scream. The tram swept past various exquisite Chinese and Western buildings, heading towards a group of low and cramped old-style buildings, and finally stopped next to a green-painted road sign. The white printed text on the sign had faded, and the words Hanks Road could be vaguely recognized. With the sound of steam steaming, the car doors opened to both sides, and Gu Jianxiu walked off the tram, wearing a shoulder bag on his chest, which contained a sample of heart-glazed tubes he had just bought from Sanha Xian. I have told you many times that when the West Tower died, there was no money left. Don't come back. When going upstairs, Gu Jianxiu saw a man with a horse face wearing a black shirt and a felt hat squatting at his doorstep, munching on pig trotters. The angry voice of his sister Gu Zhaoxue could be heard inside the door. Impossible, how could he possibly have no money? I should have a share, big sister. Can you help me? For the sake of the face of the West Building, you leave immediately now. The argument inside the door became increasingly intense. The man with a horse face noticed that Gu Jianxiu was staring at him, his mouth curling downwards. He was supposed to threaten and drive the other person away, but when he heard the commotion inside the room, he rolled his eyes and cursed, so he didn't bother Gu Jianxiu anymore and impatiently pushed open the door, asking, "Juliet, are you really capable?" "Okay, no problem, brother Dao, I can definitely give you money today." Gu Jianxiu walked to the door and saw Juliet, who was wiping her sweat with the back of her hand and apologizing to the man with a horse face. The woman looks like she is in her 20s and 60s, with fair skin, a beautiful figure, a pair of green eyes, and delicate features unique to mixed-race children. She combed her brown chicken tail, with a split strand of hair hanging straight down her right face, running down her neck and over her collarbone. Her face was haggard with heavy makeup, and there was a faint scent of opium tincture emanating from her body. Juliet was the best friend of her older brother Gu Shilo during his lifetime. She was originally a dancer on the Lido stage, but she stopped working with Gu Shilo. When Gu Jianxiu was still with her older brother before, he saw her go downstairs and call out his name more than once. Then Gu Shilo would complain and go downstairs, two people riding a bicycle gradually moving away, and the woman in the back seat holding Gu Shilo's waist with a sweet expression on her face, "Big sister, can you help me? I'm really at a loss." Juliet clasped her hands together and begged hard, her eyes already swollen with tears. "You see, I've been with Shilo for so many years, please. If I don't repay the money again, they will really throw me into the Yangtze River to plant lotus flowers." Gu Zhaoxue glanced at Juliet and then at the shoulder beside her, revealing two hairy arms. The man with a fierce face was a bit soft-hearted. She asked the man with a hoarse face softly, "How much does she owe you?" The man made a gesture and spat his saliva, saying, "Even with profit, it's 1,600 yuan. Gu Zhaoxue stroked her forehead and said helplessly, "I don't have that much." The man showed a salty smile and said, "If you don't have money, you can." Sister. Gu Jianxiu at the door let out a soft cry. Sword Autumn. Gu Zhaoxue, with a gloomy face, only then noticed that her younger brother was standing at the door. The horse-faced man turned around and suddenly saw a bright light. "Ah, you are the brother of the West Valley building, right? You look exactly like your dead brother." As he looked at Gu Jianxiu, he approached and said, "Actually, Juliet's debt is partly the responsibility of your siblings. Don't say I bully women." Juliet grabbed the man with a hoarse face by the sleeve and said, "Jianxiu is still studying, he doesn't have any money. So tall and still studying, taking the imperial examination." The man smiled and wiped his oily hand on Gu Jianxiu's shoulder. Gu Jianxiu looked at him calmly and did nothing. Without saying a word, Gu Zhaoxue rushed into the kitchen and took out a kitchen knife. She held it firmly in front of the man with a hoarse face, like a lioness protecting her calf. Her eyes almost spewed fire and said, "Let go of my little brother." So now, the man with a hoarse face faced the sharp knife and widened his eyes, saying, "Your mother is so stinky. You scare me with a knife. My godfather is the Longpi Taibao of a Yuan dog farm. Are you brave enough to stab me?" "Me." His hand was held by Gu Jianxiu, and he also had a stack of banknotes stuffed into his hand. 16,000, you order. My mother is still sleeping, and the old man is too old to be frightened. Don't be so loud, take the money and leave." The man with a hoarse face was taken aback and nodded at the money in his hand. It was indeed 1,600 yuan. "If you pay early, it won't be over." He swaggered the money into his pocket and left without saying a word. Juliet swallowed her saliva and smiled at Gu Zhaoxue, saying, "Sister, I will repay you the money as soon as possible. I'll leave first." After speaking, he quickly ran away. "Where did you get the money?" Gu Zhaoxue approached Gu Jianxiu and urgently asked geological questions. Gu Jianxiu took out his work permit for drawing dragons and waved it at his sister, saying with a smile, "I found a job, sister. On my first day at work, I cured my boss's beloved dog, and he gave me a bonus of 2,000 yuan. Really, I don't believe you're going to work with me on Monday." Gu Zhaoxue touched her younger brother's face, pondered for a moment, and nodded, "I believe you are the most calm among my 3 brothers. You never make me worry, you won't deceive me. Sister, dinner is not ready yet." "Oh, I forgot, it's all them." "Sister, I'll do it now." Gu Zhaoxue got up and wiped her hands. "Hey, there's no soy sauce at home." Gu Jianxiu stood up and said, "I'll go buy it." "Okay. Buy the red brand one, Jianyu loves it." "Got it." Gu Jianxiu picked up a bamboo chopstick from the dining table and turned around to leave the door. Stepping out of Tianguan Square, Juliet chased closely behind the man with a hoarse face. "Brother Dao, Brother Dao." The horse frowned impatiently and said, "Why are you still catching up?" Juliet licked her cracked lower lip and said awkwardly, "You miscalculated. I lent you 900 yuan back then, and today it should be 1,400 yuan based on a 3-part interest rate. Did you just accept 1,600 yuan? Is that 200 yuan? So nah, the man with a hoarse face laughed back in anger. Just as he was about to say something, he noticed a figure slowly approaching behind Juliet. Gu Jianxiu. You his mother. The man with a horse-faced face, who noticed that the newcomer was not kind, still had something to say. A fist clutching a bamboo chopstick had already enveloped his vision. If you dare to touch me, my godfather won't let you go. The man with a hoarse face fell to the ground, his hands covering his neck, and a sharpened bamboo chopstick ran through his neck from left to right. Juliet was already stunned and limped on the ground, unable to move. Gu Jianxiu grabbed the collar of the horse-faced man's clothes and took away the 1,600 yuan he had just taken from his hand. However, he did not put it back in his pocket. Instead, he rolled the money into a pile and stuffed it into the man's mouth. He reached out a finger and shook it in front of him, then punched the horse-faced man hard in the mouth. Woo! The shattered teeth left 2 bloodstains on Gu Jianxiu's fist. The man with a horse face hunched into a ball, muttering vaguely. The fear of death made his limbs weak, almost depriving him of all his will to resist, and he could only let Gu Jianxiu do it like a sandbag. Gu Jianxiu parted his right hand and, in his pleading and fearful gaze, cleanly broke his middle finger. 10 fingers connected to his heart, and his horse's face suddenly widened in pain, causing him to scream and vomit out his mouth full of broken teeth and swollen bills soaked in blood. In fact, you are not the person of Longpi Taibao at all. Longpi's subordinates have a green dragon tattooed on their little fingers. But you have nothing on your hands. He doesn't have a godson, only 2 godsons, his right arm, one called Guapi and the other called Fopi. You are just a little thug selling opium tincture. You and Juliet are playing double reed, just trying to deceive my sister's money. As Gu Jianxiu spoke, he also broke 2 of his fingers. The man with a horse face let out a wave of mournful cries, causing him to twitch uncontrollably in pain and almost fainting until all 5 fingers on his right hand were spared. From what you said earlier, do you know my big brother? Do you know what? How did my big brother die? Gu Jianxiu pinched the other hand of the horse's face. Mao Yan's face was almost deformed, his pupils were congested, and he said vaguely, your elder brother is causing trouble in the mine. A few thousand people are not working. Lord Longpi asked someone to do it. The assassin was hired from Jinju. I really don't know anything else. You let me go, I really don't know anything. Gu Jianxiu let out a deep breath, no longer entangled. He glanced at Juliet next to him, then withdrew his gaze and turned to leave. Suddenly, Gu Jianxiu thought of something. He turned back and pulled out a large stack of money. He counted out $100 bills and put them into the horse-faced man's twisted right hand like fried dough twists. Go find a doctor. The injury on your neck looks scary and won't kill you. Chapter 7. Tiande Public School, the highest of humanity, auspicious teacher. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gu Tianyu is 17 years old today and is preparing to apply for the military preparatory program at Tiande Public School with excellent grades. He chose the military subject because the empire issued a new policy last spring festival, exempting half of the tuition and miscellaneous expenses of the military academy. The Ministry of Rights will also provide monthly allowances to military trainees, which is a great temptation for Gu Tianyu. Gu Tianyu knew that his family was short of money. After the death of big brother Gu Shilo, he did not leave any savings. His colleagues in the mine raised 500 yuan for his family, but it was just a drop in the bucket. The 4 members of the family's food, electricity, and water, as well as their mother's monthly medical expenses and rent. With just this money and the sewing lady, the family cannot sustain themselves for too long. My second brother originally had the opportunity to stay on campus as a preparatory lecturer, with a high salary, relaxed and dignified, but now that there is an unexpected situation at home, I can't afford to take care of it, so I guess it will be too late. I often don't see him during the day these days. I go out early every morning and don't go home until dinner. I think I went to the street to find trouble. If I am admitted to the military academy next year, I will get a monthly allowance of 80 yuan, which can almost cover my mother's medicine expenses. My family will relax in no time. Gu Tianyu. Extend your hand. The crisp female voice interrupted Gu Tianyu's thoughts, and a girl with braids and a black pleated skirt ran over excitedly. What is this? Gu Tianyu frowned and reached out his hand. Snow cream, My mom bought it for me. I'll give you some, it's good for my skin. The girl lowered her head and applied the white cream on the back of Gu Tianyu's hand, then gently wiped it away. Gu Tianyu felt the cool sensation on the back of his hand gradually spreading, feeling a bit helpless for a moment. By the way, Gu Tianyu, I heard that the school has invited a celestial teacher to give us an open class. The girl asked without looking up. Well, I've heard about it too. It's his next class. Gu Tianyu answered dryly. It's the first time I've heard a lecture from a celestial being. I've seen them occasionally on the street before, but they're all so scary. I didn't dare to talk to them. The so-called celestial beings, as the name suggests, are people from the sky. The Jinju people refer to them as cosmic beings, while the Jili people refer to them as aliens as early as 64 AD, formerly known as the 7th year of Yongping in the Eastern Han Dynasty. The history of the people of ancient Crabapple recorded the story of a celestial being named Yaoshi who met the emperor. Over 1800 years later, there were more than 1,000 scattered records of suspected celestial beings in the history of various parts of the world, but in the end, there was no conclusive evidence left. In the long history of humanity, most schools of thought did not even recognize the existence of heaven and man, especially in the 14th century when humanity had just emerged from its home planet. Uniqueness was prevalent, and some extreme religions even denounced classics that recorded heaven and man as heretical and openly persecuted scholars who preached the theory of heaven and man. Until the past 100 years, people with different postures have flocked in large numbers and high intensity, making traditional powerhouses such as Crabapple, Chicken, and East-West Roses have to pay attention to them. The unprecedented great changes in human history have finally arrived. Gu Tianyu, do you think Tianren can speak the language of begonia? If not, how can he teach us? The girl tilted her head and asked. Ji Xiang was born with 20 basic electrocardiogram points, which can communicate with all beings in the universe. We don't need to study the language of Haitang specifically, we can also understand what he is saying. 20 o'clock basic electrocardiogram. Isn't that a heavenly official? The girl exclaimed, are all heavenly officials? They are so powerful. What if they go to war with us? Gu Tianyu patiently explained. Although Ji Xiang was born with 20 points of ECG, which is 4 times the initial level of human beings, no matter what method is used to develop it, the maximum will not exceed 50 points. It is only equivalent to the level of our human beings level 2 Tianguan, which is the limit of Ji Xiang. The current level of single ECG of human beings can reach 109 points at most, and our level of ECG development has been improving. 109 is not the end of human beings. After a pause, Gu Tianyu said again, besides, the Auspicious people are a wandering ethnic group in the Milky Way, lacking a rigorous organizational structure and planetary resources. Although they master advanced righteous body technology, they are not a threat to the divine machine group that humans can cross the constellations. The girl propped her cheeks and curiously asked, how did you know about this? It's not something that my previous teacher taught me before. My second brother is studying natural resources at Jiangning Normal University, and I occasionally read his textbooks. Dong, dong. The sound of knocking at the door interrupted the conversation between the two. A person dressed in a black robe, without hair or eyebrows, with blue skin and wearing Hermione lenses, standing at the door with a height of 2.23 meters, saw the students' eyes converging before entering the classroom. Hello everyone from Tiande Public School. I am specially hired by the principal of your school to teach you the theory of electrocardiogram. My name is... He paused and opened his hand, saying, I don't have a name. As you can see, I am a celestial being. Humans usually call us Auspicious, so you can call me Teacher Ji Xiang. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Although his tall stature and unusual skin color make him look a bit scary, judging from his calm demeanor and scholarly tone, this auspicious teacher is indeed a teacher with rich teaching experience. Tiande Public School is one of the top public schools in the local area. Its predecessor, Tiande Academy, has a long history and produced many famous figures in history. It is not uncommon for officials and nobles, such as Wei Guangxi, the governor of Liangjiang, who was born and raised in Jiangning. He studied at Tiande Academy as a young man. Since the rise of Xinxue, Wei Guangxi has vowed to initiate reforms from his hometown. The original Tiande Academy has been transformed into Tiande Public School, which is now the largest public school in Jiangning. There are about 3,000 students, mostly from the wealthy class in Jiangning. Only such public schools can invite a celestial being to give lectures. Classmates, I know you all have a certain foundation before, but what I'm talking about is something you've never been exposed to before. It's only 3 months since the national exam, and we're running out of time. Now, I'll get straight to the main topic. Today's first lesson is about the development and application of ancient human electrocardiogram. The so-called electrocardiogram is a natural reaction of life, and even the weakest life has a weak electrocardiogram. Note that electrocardiogram is a phenomenon and reaction, a form of energy, not a substance, and many students will get it wrong. For humans, powerful electrocardiogram can be used to operate large divine machines that freely explore the universe, communicate freely with humans and the spiritual world of the universe, and even interfere with matter on a large scale. Some ancient human religions have unique electrocardiogram development skills. As the content of the auspicious lecture deepened, the students fell silent. Many people took out heavy notebooks and ink brushes to brush dots, and quickly entered a state of learning. The academic level of Tiande Public School was evident.